This podcast is for informational purposes only. We are not medical professionals and do not provide medical advice. Consult a healthcare provider for any health concerns. Opinions expressed are not a substitute for professional medical guidance.
Welcome to the Optimize We podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay O'Neill, and I'm super excited to kick off this series of interviews and biohacking truths without the BS with you. Hello and welcome to the Optimize We podcast, where we share biohacking truths and no BS ever. I am joined by the amazing, the incredible, hardworking Josh Yashari from Cosmo Health, which is cosmo.la. Cosmo Health is an incredible brand. Their mission is to empower individuals to achieve optimal well-being by integrating advanced wellness technologies with holistic therapies, educational resources, and creating a transformative environment that nurtures the mind, body, and spirit while also fostering authentic connection and personal growth. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, how is this possible through what I see as like a beauty brand and a health brand to foster all of these amazing things for our life and to help us optimize our health? Well, then you should stay tuned for this episode because it's going to be a great one. So Josh, welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Lindsay, for having me.
Now, when we first connected, you told me an incredible story about your own healing journey. And while I want to get to that, I also really want you to tell me a little bit more about your background, like where you came from and how you ended up jumping into this crazy biohacking health world.
Well, I think that I have to get into my story at some point, but I'll start with the brief narrative. I am an entrepreneur by trade, always have been. I have trouble answering to authority. I will always answer to authority if there is a rationale as to what they're doing, but I am the kind of person that if I can't comprehend what you're doing or come to terms with whatever it is, it's hard for me to go out and just be the labor force for a company. So that's why at some point I decided I want to start my own thing. Entrepreneurship is in my blood, though. I graduated from Babson College. They're rated the #1 entrepreneurship school in the country for, I think, over 20 years now. My father is an entrepreneur. So I knew that I wanted to do something and do something impactful on society for quite a while. It wasn't until I got to Babson where I really realized that it's in the health and wellness space. And that's what's led me here to Cosmo. I've had a couple ventures in between Cosmo and now, or Cosmo and then. They've really helped craft my skill set into what we're doing today with Cosmo.
And that's cool because it took me a while to figure out that I needed to be an entrepreneur too. That I don't have a problem with authority, and I'm a great team player and a boss. But when you're working for another company, they are leaning more towards the entrepreneurial side of things because of that reason. They're so much more focused on living their passion or living their purpose than people, in their 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s ever were. So it's great that you were kind of born into the entrepreneurial spirit. And let's get into your story a little bit more, because similarly to my story, your purpose and your passion was driven through pain.
Well, let me just say something on the entrepreneurial thing. I don't have an issue with authority. I have an issue with authority without logic. So authority that can't explain to me what they're doing. I worked at a startup in the past, and the founder of that startup just had me laboring on a task that made no sense to me at the time. And my analytics were right. My thought was right because that company went down under. So it's not about authority per se. It's about logic and reasoning, and also motivating the people below you, which I learned from that it's really important to motivate those under you.
Yeah,
Um,
I think even less of, motivation and a little bit more of enrolling. There's enrolling them in the purpose and the vision, and
yes,
only hiring people that are aligned with that purpose and the vision. So, you're not going to find someone that's gone through your exact health journey, but we've all gone through something. And that's
yes,
why the majority, if not all, of people who are listening to this podcast are listening to this podcast. Because
100%.
they've gone through their own journeys as well. So I appreciate that you're not like running away from the cops when they're trying to arrest you. You're just trying to be the most impactful you can be,
Exactly.
understanding that there are great people out there that you can align yourself with. It just may not be someone who's running a business.
Exactly. 100%. Well, getting into my story, I had chronic illness for as long as I've been alive almost. I was diagnosed with epilepsy at age 7 or 8 and was put on medication. My mother, not knowing better at the time, also my school at the time, I was going to a private Jewish school, and they were putting a lot of pressure on my parents because I had ADD and I couldn't sit still, hence my entrepreneurial mindset. And they wanted to oust me, I friends from the school, and my mother would do anything she could to keep stability in my life. So she put me on Adderall at a really young age, around the same age. And for as long as I can remember, as a child, I used to have hangovers after school, and I didn't understand why. Now I do. It was the come down from taking Adderall. And I think that led to side effects in the later part of my adolescence. So over time, I actually outgrew the epilepsy. I was on medication for quite a while, but I outgrew it. We did a lot of testing at the time, and I think there was nothing conclusive. And my neurologist said, let's just try to weather off the medication. And we did. No episode after 1 week, 2 weeks, and it was a grand surprise that like I was cured. We think it was viral. I've done some minor research. It's rare to hear about viral epilepsy, but that my mom found some research at the time that showed some case being viral and carried in rodents, the virus. And we used to have a
Really?
guinea pig as a child, and I used to play with the guinea pig and put it on my chest, and it bit me. And so that's the closest conclusion we have. We really don't know the details of it, but going through,
And
yeah,
I have heard of viral seizures and also febrile seizures. So that's
yes,
when, especially children and young children, babies, you can get all sorts of infections, and babies obviously can't advocate for themselves and say, "Hey, this hurts or that hurts," or maybe I have a UTI or something like that. And the having a fever because of an infection can actually trigger a seizure episode.
it, yeah, no, 100%. Mine was not febrile. It was most likely viral. I don't remember fevers. I can tell you, I remember the first episode very clearly. Was in summer camp. And funny enough, the not to go on a long-winded story, but we had a dog that l- I was a little like, ADD monstrous kid. The dog wasn't that fond of me, loved me, but I remember it was like my first day of going to this new summer camp, and I was in my mom's room, really anxious, little kid, like, am I gonna meet the right friends, whatever. And the dog comes and just sits in my lap the night before summer camp, and we were both like, what is going on here? So, speak of sixth sense, that dog had a sixth sense because the next day I went to camp, and probably an hour into the camp, I had a really bad headache, migraine, and they took me to the nurse's office, and I was just sitting there. That's all I remember. Next thing I know, I woke up in a hospital bed with all the machinery, heart scanners, heart monitors, etc. And I'm just nervous, an 8-year-old boy, and my mom is right there. I'm like, Mom, where am I? Mom, where am I? Just asking constantly. And so that was my first episode. There were a few that came between that period and when we discovered I was like cured, which was probably by age 13, 12, 13. So it was a 4-year period. But it was really crazy to me that that dog could foreshadow what was about to happen to me.
Are such intuitive. creatures, especially dogs. I think about my dogs all the time, and even when somebody maybe who even has bad will for your family or something walks by your house, I have two silent dogs. They don't bark, and every once in a while they'll bark at a car going by or a person going by, and I always wonder, I wonder if that person was coming here to, to do something bad in my home. But it's incredible to me that you had this seizure episode. That's a really traumatic experience to be away at summer camp for the first time. It's your first day at summer camp, and you have this traumatic health issue. And now you're put on a lot of medication. You're put on medication for your ADD. And this medication must have just wrecked your gut over the course of many years.
I was on medication from age 8 to 12 for epilepsy, for seizures, to prevent them. And then simultaneously, I was on Adderall consistently. I don't remember the dosage, but probably from age 8 to around 15, 16. And before I even get into the gut, because that is my journey, it led to me being a really quiet. Adderall just like diminished my personality completely. I was a quiet kid. I was off on my own more often than not, very introverted in school. And it was a ritual for me to have it out on the breakfast table with my food. So I didn't know better. My mom was just giving it to me until one day she forgot. And I remember like going into the school day feeling enlivened and coming out of it and not having any headaches. And I was like, what is going on? And I realized what this drug had been doing to me. And I fought my mom and said, I'm not taking it anymore. And I managed to work my way through high school and get into medicine without Adderall or very limited uses of it. And probably around senior year or junior, senior year of high school, speak of all the things that my body had been on, I developed really severe cystic acne. It was so bad to the point that I was having migraines again. They were so painful. You would touch them, they feel like bruises on your forehead.
Mm.
And I had actually gotten into some healthy lifestyle at that time. My best friend at the time was deeply infatuated with CrossFit. This is probably 2011, 12. And so I went to a couple classes with him and I fell in love with that endorphin rush you get after the class.
Yeah.
Led me to some healthy eating and just sort of starting my wellness journey, so to speak. I started developing this acne even though I was eating so healthy and I didn't know better. Went to a dermatologist. After a few sessions, I was desperate. I decided I'm going to take Accutane. So pile all of that up. The
For
puberty.
anyone who can't see me, I'm shaking my head because I've got teenage daughters, and this is the constant battle that we have with them. Whenever they get hormonal, I have a very cystic body as well. Like I get cysts in weird places, and I always have. My dad was the same, and so my kids are now getting acne, and they're like, "Oh, well, the doctor said we should go on Accutane." I'm like, "No, we're not going to do that. It just wrecks you." So I'm sorry.
It
Continue.
no, no, you're 100% on point. It really does. And I didn't know better at the time.
Yeah.
And I was really desperate because now looking back with the knowledge I have, puberty is a time where your body is coming into its adult form, right? And what I realized at that time, what I realize now is that my body was detoxing while it was growing into its adult form. And I do, what was the term you used? I have acne in all places.
Yeah, exactly. All places, all places. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely do. My body definitely is a black box. Anything that comes in, it comes out, and I've learned to listen more to it over time. But back then, I was just desperate again, a young high school kid with deep pain, and I just wanted to feel better, so I took it. Simultaneously, along that journey, I am now in college, and I'm off the Accutane, and probably sophomore year, I develop gastrointestinal issues. So you nail on the head in what you said earlier. All that medication I took as a child, plus the Accutane, I just started developing these crazy symptoms. My stomach was constantly grumbling. It felt like glass was crunching in it. I had, I hope this isn't too much for your audience, but severe flatulation for anyone who's dealing with that. And I was, by the way, going deeper and deeper down my health journey. I started getting into yoga in college, started attending core power. I started discovering the more spiritual side of things.
Mm.
And I was also an entrepreneur, and this is probably mid 2014, 15, when the app bubble was blowing up. This was when Evan Spiegel sent that big public FU to Mark Zuckerberg that I'm not going to let you buy my company. And in my school, a lot of kids were inspired by that and starting apps. So I actually was starting a company in wellness at that time. But then here I am feeling completely wrecked and unhealthy. So it was a dual journey where I'm educating myself on the business side of house, plus learning the actual internal medicine side of my own body.
Like a fraud. You're starting this health app and you're unhealthy.
Yes and no. The actual concept, which is brilliant, and had I had the right skills, would probably be successful. It was helping me. So the idea was actually I started really caring about what I'm eating and the quality of the foods and not having processed ingredients, seed oils, etc. And I refused more often than not to eat in my cafeteria. So I started going to the local Whole Foods a lot and eating there. This is when Whole Foods kitchen was a little cleaner. And I would always look at the snack aisle, the beverage aisle, and read all these ingredients because I started becoming a skeptic as I was educating myself. And the first thing you see on all these ingredient labels was high fructose corn syrup on a Whole Foods like juice bottle. And I was shocked. So and there were these like influencers at the time who were constantly dismissing what these beverage manufacturers, these F&B manufacturers were doing, but they didn't have a platform. And so my idea was I wanted to build a review platform like a Yelp to review any kind of food, which there is a level of objectivity to food and beverage, and there's a level of subjectivity of how it agrees with your body. And I wanted to build a sort of streamlined platform that allows them to review it and create a health rating for it. So I didn't feel like an imposter because I was never claiming expertise. It just forced me to continue to educate myself about the foods I was eating. So it was actually helping me along my journey, if that makes sense.
It does. I mean, usually I built my first website as a food blog because I never wrote down any of my recipes. And so in order to keep track of my recipes, I just put them up on my blog, and then I could go back to my blog anytime. Oh, what was that recipe again? How did I make that chicken the other day? And so that was kind of like, born out of that. And our biohacking index was very much born out of the same need. There's so many products to help you optimize your health. How do you know which ones are efficacious? And yes, it's objective, it's subjective. A lot of these companies have their own ratings and reviews on their own website, maybe Google ratings and reviews, but there's no real one central location for these brands to showcase any clinical research, clinical studies, video testimonials, and then also get those unbiased third-party ratings and reviews to normalize the industry and to help other people figure out what they should use for the optimization of their health. Now, I love this idea. Yuka created an app where you can scan. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So that they kind of took your idea and ran with it. But I've heard a lot of people lately saying that, because Yuka is a French brand, that of course they're going to find fault in American food because French have such higher standards than we do in terms of their food production and what they allow in terms of like GRAS, which are generally recognized as safe by the FDA, which are not really safe. There's like over 2,200 additives, colorings, stabilizers, gums, flavoring, all that kind of stuff, fragrances in our food. And then you're layering that on top of, a system like your own biology that's already broken. So you're going to Whole Foods, you're trying to eat clean, you're realizing that even the whole foods and clean eating is not really clean. But
Right.
you're already coming from a place of, instability in your gut microbiome, and so what happens next in your story? Dying to
Um,
know.
well, yeah, so what happens next is still learning and still educating myself. And so I probably by junior year, I was just reading a lot and I started building this theory that I have Crohn's. And I was really scared about it, I remember. And my parents were like, Josh, you don't have Crohn's, calm down, like relax, let's get you into a gastroenterologist. So I went to my dad's gastroenterologist. My dad has chronic acid reflux and someone he really trusted, or his partner. And he, after probably like 10 different kinds of tests, stool sampling, blood tests, breath tests, all these things. They diagnosed me with something that's really common in today's world known as SIBO, simple intestinal bacterial overgrowth. I think that there would have been more testing to be done looking back at it now. And I probably had more than just SIBO. It's probably IBS, but they diagnosed me with that and they threw a pamphlet down on the table and they're like, follow this diet and I'm going to prescribe you antibiotics. And this is at this point when my gut was in like chaos. There, anything I was eating, per your point, clean whole food diet was causing havoc inside of my gut and instability.
Right.
And I was still in college, and I'm not gonna lie, I dabbled in alcohol at this time a little bit. I wanted to fit in, even though I never really liked nightlife or clubbing. I wanted to fit in.
Mm.
And so I took the antibiotics and I actually followed that diet, the low FODMAP diet, which I'm sure you know about.
Oh yeah.
It's all the different sugars, fructose, oligoctose, glucose, etc. The symptoms dissipated for about 2 months, completely gone. I felt excellent. 2 months later, came back tenfold, and I was really strict on the diet. And I go back to the GI doctor and told him, without doing any tests, he just goes, oh, yeah, more often than not, we usually see patients with severe cases of SIBO to take two rounds of whatever the antibiotic strain was. And I had been studying because I'm pursuing a business in health and wellness, specifically around food. And I knew that antibiotics were destroying your gut microbiome, or at least a really hard reset of it. And I didn't think this was the solution. And there was very little personal relation with the doctor. And I feel like that's something consistent in most of our medical industry. And I took the prescription, but I sat down for a couple days and did some more research. And something that really struck like a chord with me, struck a nerve, was when I found out that most gastroenterologists or all gastroenterologists are required to study a minimum of, I think it was 25 hours of nutrition. And most of our medical industry, if not all, is required to study a minimum of 14 hours of nutrition. And I was just enraged at that fact alone
I think
because
that's actually way higher than what I've heard from interviewing doctors who are real allopathic doctors. They said somewhere between 4 and 8 hours.
that would make a lot of sense. I bet you that's the minimum and that's what's stated in the public, but I bet you there, when you're actually in the institution, it's less than that.
Yeah.
So I was deeply enraged at that reality. And I tossed away the antibiotics and I said, I'm not going back to this doctor. And I definitely fought with my parents at the time. And I started just really taking things into my own hand. I came across a really interesting study at the time. And I mean, it's something most people in the wellness industry know. They call it the health continuum. It's a basic psychological study of how people approach their health and well-being in the United States. And you have what they call the medical paradigm on one end of the continuum and the wellness paradigm on the other. And it's really simple. In the medical paradigm, you have an external locus of control. you are reactive to your situation. And so if you have an issue, what do? You go to the doctor. You wait till the issue comes and then you react. And you rely on outside parties to actually tell you what to do for your health and well-being. And we're coming into a time now where we're entering the wellness paradigm where people are frustrated with the allopathic system and they're taking wellness into their own hands. Wellness up till 5 years ago was the fastest growing industry in the world. The only thing that's superseding it is AI.
Yeah.
But there's a reason for that. There's a deep frustration with our medical industry, and I know I'm not the only one. If not, we wouldn't be on this podcast today. So
And I do think
yeah,
5 years ago, obviously, there was a pandemic. There was a global pandemic, which really kicked our butts into gear because pain is the greatest motivator. Just like you
100%.
through pain, I got motivated through pain to kind of get out of the hamster wheel of working in tech for other people and making everybody else rich and just kind of slinging ad space to come here and help optimize, not advertising, but optimize health for hopefully millions of people that I'm working with. And the reason that I love interviewing people like you've done the same thing, but you've also created like a tactical product or a product suite that is able to harness that vision and mission that we all have individually now, which is I'm taking responsibility for my own health. And so these are products and solutions that I have in my own home. My whole family uses. We use them consistently because they help us not just look better, but also feel better. And one of the things that I wanted to get really into with you is, yes, you went through this whole journey, and obviously gut health is related to your skin health, right? Your skin is kind of like a reflection of what's going on in your gut. So anytime someone comes to me with a skin rash or any sort of acne or any other issues with their skin, dry, flaky skin, I always say you have to look at food first and you have to look at your gut health. Right? Removing all of those toxins, eating clean, fortifying your gut microbiome in multitude of different ways. So how did you cross that chasm? How did you go from like, I'm sick, I'm getting better, I'm getting sick again, I'm getting better, I'm learning more, and then boom, all of a sudden I've got this product.
Well, I'm sorry the story is taking longer, but I'm almost there. So at this time, I lost faith in our medical industry, and I am dealing with severe gut issues, and I am further down the line on my wellness journey, and I'm now practicing yoga daily and not just like hot yoga, but Ashtanga and going to all these places. And I know that there are alternative modalities out there that I've come across, Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, homeopathy, etc. So I'm just like, how do I find the right solution? Because the allopathic system is not working for me. And funny enough, my mom started seeing an acupuncturist and she said, why don't you go? I said, sure. Went to my first session and I literally felt like I was floating. It was one of the most remarkable experiences, and I built a deep, profound relationship, and I've been seeing her to this day. After our first session, my symptoms dissipated, at least for an hour or two. And she asked me to come in for another session. And she did this whole pulse and tongue and questioning diagnosis on me, where she literally prescribed me exactly what I can and cannot be eating. Like to the T, don't have cruciferous vegetables. You could get away with broccoli. And she's looking at them from an energetic and temperature standpoint, which is how Chinese medicine looks at food as a whole.
Right.
And it deeply inspired me. And after probably 6 months of a strict diet and following her herbs, I healed myself. And I became infatuated with Chinese medicine. At some point, my wellness company had died in that period. I didn't get enough traction. I was a young entrepreneur and I went into the workforce, but I was driving her nuts in the practice, asking her question after question. And probably after 4 or 5 years, she's like, Josh, you should go take an intro course. And so I decided during the pandemic to take an intro course to traditional Chinese medicine at one of the most respected institutions, which actually just closed down, and it's really unfortunate, called Emperor's College. And or you've had those moments where you just sit there and listen and your jaw is just dropped the whole time because everything feels like it makes so much sense and the whole universe is connecting.
Yeah. And you feel like everything I've gone through up until this moment was intentional, and
Yes.
and it led me to this place. That's how I felt in early 2019 when I sat in the Harvard School of Public Health. It was actually at the CIA, the Culinary Institute of America, out in Napa, which is not a bad place to be anyway. It's beautiful there. And so, as a layperson, not as a doctor, surrounded by doctors who, excuse my French, but didn't know their ass from their elbow when it came to nutrition, to your point before. And they were all learning alongside me. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, wow, I know more about nutrition than all of these doctors that are in this room, hundreds of doctors. And I get to learn about real functional foods and then go into the kitchen and learn how to cook them too. It was a really great program. And I'm assuming you had a very similar experience with Empress College, because that, learning about something that we're not even exposed to in the United States, not even a little bit.
I couldn't agree more with you. It wasn't just about food for me. It was all the philosophies of how traditional Chinese medicine looks at the body, looks at the universe, and the holistic nature of the modality and all these modalities that are contrarian to allopathic care. And at some point, I said to myself, why was it so hard for me to come to this journey, come to this conclusion, and reach Chinese medicine in this country? And how can I reduce access or increase access to it?
Yeah.
And that was the whole mission behind Cosmo. It's to increase access to alternative care. It's to create an ecosystem of alternative care tools and services that help people access it today in a very simple at-home experience, and with the long-term goal of getting clinical funding to actually go research these modalities. If I told you the amount of funding that homeopathy, acupuncture, Ayurveda, etc., gets compared to allopathic medicine, you'd be shocked. It's less than 0.1% of clinical research and funding. And so it's just dismissed as woo-woo a lot of the time because we're not actually researching and trying to understand it through the Western lens. And that's the goal of Cosmo. It's to bring products to market that answer one of three variables. It educates the customer. It is enhanced with technology that can either make it more accessible, like at home use, or enhance the actual efficacy of whatever the tool is. And it's science, which is what we want to get to in the future. And as we get more and more alternative care products into customers' hands, eventually we're going to ask for data and research on that. And there are a lot of companies I'm sure you've interviewed, like Gua Health, a little shout out to them, that will help us get there and prove the efficacy of these modalities. And that's really the goal of Cosmo. It's trying to reduce barriers to accessing these. And that's why I set out to do it from my own health journey, which I can go into even deeper, but that's the long story there.
And we all have something that has motivated us to take action. Now, you've taken action on creating these cool products, and I have a couple of them with me. Now, this is the product that my daughters, even though they don't need wrinkle care, they don't need skin tightening, they've got the collagen of 10 through 14-year-olds, and they're beautiful, and they really need no help with their skin. But from a almost 44-year-old, this is awesome for me. And they had heard of Gua Sha before I even really heard of Gua Sha, because I am very, very simple when it comes to my skincare. I use a very minimal amount of castor oil and C60 skincare on my face.
Wow.
And
well, you look incredible.
Thank you. And that's how I've been able to stay young and radiant. But this has definitely helped. So when I put my C60 and my castor oil from Queen of the Thrones onto my face, I can actually use your Gua Sha to enhance the luminosity, the collagen, and diminish fine lines and wrinkles. It feels great. There's a lot of similar products out there that are crap. And that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about, because this podcast is all about sharing biohacking truths and no BS. But you can see this Gua Sha if you're watching this on video, but if you're just listening to it, honestly, you feel a difference within just a couple of minutes. This is a real stone, right, Josh?
Yes, it's crystal quartz.
It's crystal quartz. So why is crystal quartz so impactful for your skin?
Well, every stone is impactful in different ways. Crystal quartz is known as the harmonizing stone. It's harmonizing your body's energies. Everything in Chinese medicine looks at the body, the world between yin and yang. Everything is about yin and yang and the two extremes, and there are rules to yin and yang in Chinese medicine. And the idea of crystal quartz is it's balancing of all things. So a lot of people live out of balance, and that's what crystal quartz does. From a simple, like technical standpoint, it's a very smooth and light stone, and so it glides effortlessly against the skin, which is also why we chose it as the first stone to use in our Lunastone Gua Sha device.
Yeah, the Luna stone is really cool. It makes it sound like it's, fallen from the moon, and it kind of looks like that also. But why put in red light, and why put in heat, and why put in vibration? Like what is the advantage of that?
Yeah, so great question. Simply put, Gua Sha has been discovered recently, and this is a new way that people are using it for its cosmetic benefits because it's a lymphatic drainage tool. A lot of women wake up with very puffy faces and they're gua shang their face to move their lymphatic system.
Right.
So heat is really beneficial when you're putting your castor oil in any serum. It's helping your pores absorb whatever serum you're putting on your skin.
It's opening
It's also
your pores, which is why when you
so
do the facial, they put the hot towel on your face and they open up your pores so that they can clean out all the gunk and get all the lymph draining as well.
Exactly. Exactly. Red light is penetrating into your tissues and it is helping with cellular rejuvenation, as you know, so wrinkle care. And the vibration is helping move the lymphatic fluid even further. A lot of routines you see on TikTok, they're taking the gua sha and they wiggle it on their lymph nodes, on all their sensitive touch points. So now you can just sit it there with the vibration and it really feels like it's doing the work for you. So it's making it more effortless and then it's increasing the efficacy of Gua Sha therapy.
Now, we talk a lot about fascia release. There's a lot of different fascia release tools that are out there that have, whether it's vibration or it's essential oils that actually help open up certain fascia trigger points. Why is that so important? Why is fascia work so important?
Fascia is the connective tissue of your entire body. It connects your organs to your limbs, to your muscles, everything in between. It is literally what causes a lot of our health issues, whether chronic or acute in modern society, and we need to constantly be working on it.
What kind of issues does it contribute to?
It can contribute to just physical pain, back pain. It can contribute to headaches. It can contribute to gut issues. It can contribute to menstrual health, all of it. Because at the end of the day, fascia is the first place where stress is stored. And then it goes into the organs and the other parts of the body. So it's one of the most important systems that we need to treat in our body. There are 3 layers for it. There's the superficial, which is right above the skin, which is what the Lunastone is treating. And then you have the deeper level, and I forgot what the 3rd level is called, but that's where it's touching your organs. So the deeper level is going into your inner muscular, and then it's going into your organs. And so our tools are trying to treat the different layers of the fascia. That's our Nova Cup. It's a smart cupping device, and that's treating the more intermuscular layers of the fascia.
So for the people who are listening and are not watching, I'm holding in my hand this really cool cupping cup. Now, if you've ever gone to a chiropractor or to an acupuncturist, the likelihood is you have also had cupping done. And cupping several years ago, you'd watch these people walking into the gym and they look like giraffes because they have these cupping marks on them. And it was kind of like a fringe thing, but now there's a lot of science behind it, which is very cool. But the science really leads back to fascia work and also removing toxins from the body. Now, your cupping cup is not your typical cupping cup. I have gone to an acupuncturist where they've had heated cups, they've had stim treatment on cups, but this is something that you can have at home and do yourself, which is really cool, or you can do it on a family member or a friend. And what I found is like if I'm ever feeling tense anywhere on my body, if I find those trigger points that need to have deep fascia release and I put this cup on it, even if it's like on my shoulder or in my back somewhere, like all of a sudden my hip or my leg starts to feel better. So tell me more about how that works, because it sounds like a bunch of voodoo nonsense, but it's actually true. It
So,
does work.
yeah, no, it is true. Let me say one thing here that's really important to know. The Chinese medicine practice is very aware of the fascia, and there's more research that still can be done because the fascia has been proven to intersect at least 87% with something called the Chinese medicine channels or Chinese medicine meridians.
Hmm.
So, and there's a reason I'm getting to this. So, the idea when you go to an acupuncturist is you have these highways that are running along your body, and they're connected to every organ. And you have 12 essential highways, 12 essential channels that are running throughout your body. And if you've ever seen the show Avatar: The Last Airbender, this is my best reference when they talk about the chakra system. And they look at the chakra system as a bunch of ponds, and there are rivers that are running from each pond to the other. And when those rivers are clogged, the ponds are not flowing smoothly. Well, that's your fascia, and that's also the meridians. You need to unlock them constantly because if you don't, then you're going to have stagnation in Chinese medicine, stiffness, and all the symptoms that we just talked about earlier. So there are channels that are connected to all your different organs that are in random places. For instance, this is one of the most like popular, yeah, for headache. It's actually related to your intestines. It's called large intestine 4, and your intestines.
You got to tell people what you're doing because they might be listening. So I learned
Yeah.
this many, many years ago because I used to suffer from chronic headaches as well. So you kind of pinch in between that like fatty area of your hand between your thumb and your pointer finger. And from what I learned, you have to press really hard to release the fascia there. And then all of a sudden your headache is gone. And I used to joke that, well, it's because I now bruised my hand and my hand hurts. And so it's distracting my brain from the pain in my head. But I think it goes a little bit deeper than that, as you were just about to tell us.
Yeah, so your large intestine channel runs from your head to your intestines down to your legs. It's connected to headaches. I'm going to make it really simple. All these different meridian channels are connected to different components of your body. And the way Chinese medicine looks at your body is it's a black box, meaning anything you put into it, there's some kind of output. If there's no output, that's called stagnation, and that's what we treat. You can treat that through many different means, one being acupuncture. Upping Gua Sha is in that realm. Then you have the actual dietary changes that you need to possibly take and lifestyle changes to help your body flow smoothly, in other words. And so when you are putting acupressure on these points, it's stimulating that nerve point, that actual channel to help it flow more smoothly. And because you're not actually penetrating into the deeper layer, it's not actually activating. That's where you need to put a little more pressure. The
You really do
crazy
have to
thing.
like you got to really lean into it. But if you have the Nova Cup, not necessarily on your hand, but in other trigger points in other areas, what I found is because this does have heat and it does have vibration. It's the same as the Luna Stone, and but then it also has the cupping
Yes.
function as well, which is adding pressure without pain, which
Yes.
I love about it because I've gone to acupuncture before and you know they're putting needles into your body. This is not putting needles into your body. It is putting energy into your body, is putting frequency into your body, and it is activating that, like you said, that trigger point that's allowing you to open up that channel.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
So you can activate any of your trigger points of your acupoints with any of our tools. You can activate it with a needle. You can activate it in many different ways. The way you activate it has some small differences in value, but for an everyday consumer, however you do it, it's better than not doing it. And that's the idea behind our tool. So you can cup the middle of your stomach and you will help move your digestive fluids if you're having indigestion. You can cup your chest and clear your lungs. You can
Mhm.
cup your chest and help with back pain. So there are so many different channels. If you're ever fascinated by it, you can just go and Google it. We're going to be creating a large educational series soon to come on how the channels operate. And they're connected, like I said, from your legs to your arms to your head. It's all interconnected. And the to make it to add of one more wow factor, one thing that I always found fascinating, if anyone's tried acupuncture, which I know there's a lot of fear of needles in my skin, it doesn't go that deep. It's a really light needle. But that's the crazy part. It's touching just the surface of your skin right under it. Well, what sits there? It's your fascia. So I had this realization that there must be some overlap between the channels and the fascia. And then I researched it and came to find that that was true. And I talked to a lot of practitioners who have shown me the studies because they've studied it from both the allopathic and the Chinese medicine lens. And so when we talk about the fascia, there was one person that basically built the entire fascial meridians. His name was Thomas Myers. And he identified also that you have these 12 major channels that are running from the balls of your feet all the way through your head to your arms. And they are your different fascial lines. So when you, as you were asking me earlier, Lindsay, when you're feeling pain in your back and you treat something in your leg or your calf, it's because it's running along that fascial line. And in Chinese medicine, it's running along that channel or meridian. And so you're treating it because your body is really an interconnected web. And so the most important thing is these highways, and we can constantly treat them. The idea of Cosmos tools is to treat them more acutely for people who need a quick fix, and those who are actually dedicated to the journey of healing will come and follow our Instagram and listen to all our content and actually take the journey and maybe even go find a practitioner. We're not trying to replace the practitioners, we're trying to complement them and actually make people aware of what Chinese medicine can do.
And you've done a great job of that so far. I know that it's hard owning a business that has such a common name. Cosmo has been a blessing and a curse in terms of like the naming convention of the business, but I'm glad that you're leaning into the education piece because you have had a lot of copycats that have come after you. And that was one of the things that I had to get really comfortable with is, well, there's tons of crappy, products that are,
Yes.
they look the same, they don't function the same,
No.
and obviously are not created by somebody who really deeply cares and is taking all of the time, energy, and effort to research these modalities,
Yes.
how they are impactful and how they're going to help people without hurting them. How do you make sure that like you're not building something that's going to hurt somebody? That's always my
Testing.
fear creating testing, lots of testing.
Yeah, rigorous testing. And it doesn't have to be clinical testing, testing amongst friends and family and people who want to be my guinea pigs. In the future, when we can have a budget to do clinical testing, we will. But it's just testing and making sure that it works and keeping things for months. I think no matter if you're in wellness or fashion, like clothing. I was listening to a podcast the other day where a big fashion founder, before he launches anything, he wears the piece of clothing or the optical glasses for a couple months and tests how many compliments he gets. So everything is rooted in testing to make sure that we're actually assuring customer safety. And I can speak to our products really briefly. One of the things, it's not just testing, it's also the way we built it. One of the things specifically with our Nova Cup that's so unique is I tested a lot of different samples. I've tested all the junk competitors that have tried to build products, and some of them are beating us right now in sales because they're much cheaper priced, and kudos to them that they can create a product that people are willing to try. But when you try that product versus ours, you see the difference. One, inconsistent suction. We made sure to put a very strong pump in our Nova Cup to assure that it's going to be consistent with a strong PCB board. The other one is none of them have vibration. And one of the things I really value about our cup is it's what you said earlier. It has both negative pressure and positive pressure. And just speaking to cupping for a second, why cupping is so impactful and why athletes discovered it, especially in the swimming arena and anything where you're actually moving a lot of your arms and limbs, is because of negative pressure. So essentially, where a massage or a percussive massage gun is coming and pounding the fascia and the soft tissue and compressing it to release any adhesion, the cup is pulling it and stretching it. So when you're pulling and stretching, that's like pulling and stretching your limb. It's helping with your flexibility and your mobility, which is why you see all the time Michael Phelps has cupping marks all around his lats because he's literally helping his mobility. Secondly, what it's doing is it's pulling toxins to the surface, or if you want to look at it in simple terms, it's pulling lymphatic fluids to the surface. It is bursting your blood vessels, dilating your capillaries, which is therefore creating that purple mark. That's not a bruise. That's actually detoxification. That's how the detox works. And it's pulling blood to the surface, and white blood cells then are generating to increase healing tenfold. So cupping is a much more impactful modality, and the vibration, which is what's so unique about our product, is compressing the tissue simultaneously and vibrating to really relax the nervous system and offer that massage therapy as well. So it's like a 3-in-1 device. And the one thing that is really unique about ours is we have a feature called rhythmic cupping, where there's a pattern to the suction and release. And that pattern is something that you can only get in an acupuncturist's office, and it's imitating something called flash cupping, where you've seen how fire cupping works. They put a cotton ball in a glass cup. It creates a vacuum because of CO2, stamp it on your back or wherever. What they do for flash cupping is they stamp it, take it off, stamp it, take it off. It's a lot of effort. Our cup is basically imitating that and doing that in a really easy at-home use. What that's doing is rushing blood to the surface, so for instant acute relief. And it's also helping relax the muscle tissue and the nervous system even more because of that movement. So there's something really unique. No product does it the way ours does. And I highly recommend you try it for yourself, as you have. You can definitely tell the difference. There are companies that do some version of rhythmic cupping. They don't have the vibration. The pump is inconsistent, so it hurts. It will fall off when it lets the air out a little bit. So that's why our product has been rigorously tested. It's really unique.
It is, and it's very, very impactful, not just for myself, but for my fiance, who is an FDNY lieutenant and injured from fires and carrying around lots of equipment and people, and having to basically do a very physical job for the last 22 years of his career. And then also played sports, before that, almost professional sports, and has just hurt himself. He's had dozens of surgeries.
Oh, for sure.
And is constantly in pain. And this Nova Cup has been very, very helpful and very impactful. So thank you for not just creating some fly-by-night, crappy, plastic toy that you're claiming is a wellness tool. This is actually a very well thought out, very complex, but simple and easy to use. Pain relief is what we've been using it for, and beauty for my own personal, needs. You don't just wake up looking like this. You need stuff like your Lumistone and your Gua Sha to get rid of all of the fine lines and wrinkles. So
it's all related. Sorry, I just want to say it's all related to the fascia. Your pain and beauty is all related to your fascia, what's sitting right underneath your skin. And so you can treat that through many different tools. And that's the purpose of our tools from a Western perspective. And then there's the Chinese perspective of how you can treat different symptoms. And we're really trying to create a holistic system.
And I love that a lot of people are following you on Instagram, because you do, even while you're still building this repository of educational information, you have so much great information as well on social media. So everybody should follow Josh's company, Cosmo LA, and it's Cosmo __LA.
LA, yes.
So it's at Cosmo __ LA on Instagram. And then the website is cosmo.la.
Yes.
It's where you live. Los Angeles is, the people in Los Angeles need that good energy from you. You are in a very interesting place in the world at the moment, and kudos to you for staying strong. I know it's not easy being an entrepreneur, especially when
No.
you are creating a product that, is helping. You really want to help change people's lives. So
Yes.
I'm very proud of you, Josh, and I'm sure your parents
Thank you.
are too. And I'm glad you're feeling better. And thank you so much for taking the time to be on this podcast today. I hope everybody goes to cosmo.la and checks out the products and reads up about all of the wonderful things and benefits that many other people have experienced.
Thanks, Lindsay. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining this week's episode of Optimize We. We loved having you along for the ride. Now, if you want to dive deeper into our guests' insights, be sure to follow them on their socials, because trust us, it's worth it. And don't forget to connect with us either. We're at wellnesseternal _. Stay updated, join the conversation, and be a part of the growing community. Until next time, stay inspired, stay optimizing, and we'll catch you in the next episode.